Russia and China too. Don't you know that it's time to get on board and let this train keep on riding, riding on through. Miss this train at the station, 'cause if you miss it, I feel sorry, so sorry for you. Come on, man, feel it. Feel the love, y'all.
And we call this homecoming. And whether this is your first visit or whether you've been coming to All Souls all of your life, whether you're here in the sanctuary, as so many are, or whether you're joining us online, whether you come with joy in your heart or with a heart that needs mending, whoever you are, however you are showing up, welcome home. I'm Reverend Bill Sinkford, and it's my privilege to be the transitional minister here this year. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome, everyone. Welcome home to this diverse, spirit-growing, justice-seeking, beloved community of All Souls. We light this chalice to kindle the flame of community once again. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love. And now let's join in singing our first hymn, Gather the Spirit.
Yeah. Morning, y'all.
Good morning.
I've been down south all summer, and it is such a joy to be back and to see everyone. I have missed you. My name is Carrie Reichs, for those who don't know me, and I'm your worship associate today. And it's an awesome job, but more on that later. Welcome to All Souls Church, where our ministry has thrived for 200 years, 2 centuries. Our ministry has brought together this beloved community, gathering people of diverse race, creed, sexual orientation, gender expression, and ability for worship, music, social justice, solace, celebration, ceremony, and more. As Unitarian Universalists, we are diverse in many ways, but united in our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and in the obligation to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. Welcome to a place where all people are welcome at the table of love and fellowship. I'd like to extend a special welcome this morning to those of you who are new to All Souls. If you're visiting us for the first time or still feel new here, please raise your hand so that we can give you an All Souls welcome. Are there any visitors? It is the joy of the new hybrid lifestyle to be joined with friends from across town and around the world. If you're in the sanctuary, you can access the order of service by QR code in the pew or with a printed program. And for those on Zoom, the order of service is in the chat. Our weekly email bulletin is a great way to stay up to date on all of the upcoming offerings of the church community. If you're not currently subscribed to receive the weekly bulletin, you can sign up through the link posted in the chat online or visit the All Souls website homepage. Today, welcome home. Home is where the coffee is. So I am delighted to announce that coffee has returned to Pierce Hall, which is across the hall and to my left. We hope the grown-ups will join us for coffee. We hope the children will join us immediately after the play downstairs in the cafeteria or dining hall, which is below Pierce Hall, for an all-RE photograph before they go to their individual classrooms. Those buggers don't need any more caffeine. All Souls recognizes that our city was built on lands taken from Indigenous people. We remember this great loss. The closest village to our church site was Nacotchtank, from which the name Anacostia is derived. The residents were part of the Piscataway group of tribes present in the DC and the Maryland region. And I think I just butchered the Nacotchtank. So let's take a moment of silence to pause and reflect on the lands of the Indigenous people where we reside and the fact that we could probably all do a better job of recognizing and pronouncing their tribal names. Life has changed over the past 3 years, and our community has evolved with it. Our traditional greeting has become a beholding, in person and in virtually. If you are on Zoom, I encourage you to turn on your video and scroll through the fun in gallery view. Although you'll remain on mute, please exchange smiles and waves and chats as you draw strength and joy from the exquisite gallery of this congregation. If you're in the sanctuary, I encourage you to get up and move around, greeting one another with an elbow bump, a nap, or an interpretive non-contact dance move of your choice. And don't forget to wave to the cameras located on the center balcony so that our friends online can know that we are beholding them as well. Please let the beholding begin. Thank you. Clearly, we have a lot to catch up on. So let's continue our conversations and greetings after the service. And again, welcome to All Souls Church.
so quick to criticize. Take this mouth, give it a kiss. Yeah. Always pain before a child is born. Still I'm waiting for the dawn.
Take this city, the city should be shining on a hill. Take this city, if it be your will. But no one can hold, no one can take. Take this heart, take this heart.
Take this heart and let it break. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pits, out of the miry clay. I will sing a new song. I will sing a new song. I set my feet upon a rock, and He made my footsteps fine. Many will see, many will see. I will sing a new song. I will sing a new song. My heart.
To sing this song.
Good morning. I'm Dolores Miller, your Director of Religious Education. Thank you. My pronouns are she, hers. This is the first homecoming since September of 2019 that our children have started their religious education classes in this building. Obviously, a very emotional time for me. The All Souls theme for September is belonging. And Google, my best friend, tells me that the definition of belonging is a desire to be in a particular location or group. And I think we all have that desire for belonging here at All Souls. Mr. Plumbean lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way, and so did everybody on his street. They all said,
"This is a neat street."
Then one day, a large bird flew over Mr. Plumbean's house, carrying a can of orange paint. Nobody knows why. And the bird dropped a big orange spot of paint right on Mr. Plumbean's house. Everybody said, can I hear everybody join in? Poor Mr. Plumbean's house. Let's hear some ooh, too bad.
Plumbean's gonna have to paint his house.
And he supposed he would. He looked at the big orange spot for a long time. Then he went out and bought some paint. He bought blue paint. He bought green paint. He bought red paint. He bought purple paint. He bought yellow paint. And when he was finished painting his house, it looked like a rainbow, like a jungle, like an explosion.
Plumbean has popped his cord, blown his staff, flipped his wig.
And they all went away muttering. Let's hear some muttering. Oh, yeah, Plumbean. Oh, my God. How could you do such a thing? Oh. That night, Plumbean added even more to his house. In the morning, neighbors found him relaxing in his yard, drinking lemonade with an alligator by his side. Plumbean had gone too far. They all said,
This used to be a neat street.
Plumbean, what did you do to your house?
My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams.
they decided that the next door neighbor should go have a talk with Plumbean. So he did. The next morning, when the neighbors came out, they saw a big red and yellow ship next door to Mr. Plumbean's house. "What have you done to your house?" they shouted.
My house is me and I am it. My house is where I like to be and it looks like all my dreams.
Then, one by one, late at night, they went to see Mr. Plumby. They would sit with him in his yard and drink lemonade. And the next day, each person would set about changing their house to fit their dreams. Whenever a stranger came to the house of Mr. Plumbean and his neighbors, they would say, "This is not a neat street." And all the people would say, "Our street is us, and it is it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all of our dreams." The end. Thank you so much. This is where we want to be, and it looks like all our dreams. So before we send our children and their teachers out, I want to make sure everybody knows what's going on. All the children and youth are going to first go to the dining room, which is downstairs under Pierce Hall, as Carrie said. From there, they will go to their individual classes. If you don't know where that is, we have some printouts that were in the narthex and at the front desk. Just ask people. I guarantee will help you find your children. And thank you so much. Welcome back to All Souls.
Special greeting to all the souls out there, both in the sanctuary online on this Homecoming Sunday. It is so beautiful to see you all. I'm Rob Keithan, your Minister of Social Justice, and I use he, him pronouns. There are just a few significant events coming up that I want to highlight. We are searching for a new called minister this year. And while the opinions of all congregants are welcome in the process, only official members can vote to call a candidate to the pulpit. So if you haven't signed the membership book, now is your chance. Our next 2-session joining class will start with a Zoom meeting tomorrow, Monday, September 12th, from 7 to 9 p.m., and conclude with an in-person gathering with lunch after worship on Sunday, September 18th. For more information, go to the church calendar on the homepage. This coming Wednesday night, September 14th, I invite you to join us in person or online for our first Vesper service of the year. These contemplative services, modeled on the Taizé style of worship, use short reflections, silence, prayer, and repetitive singing of chants to quiet the mind and promote deep meditation. They are held the second Wednesday of every month from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Again, you are welcome to join us here in the sanctuary or on Zoom. The login is on the church calendar. Last but certainly not least, I probably don't need to tell you that the stakes are incredibly high in the upcoming midterm federal elections. Once again, All Souls Reeb Project for Voting Rights is planning an intensive campaign to get out the vote, especially in places and among communities with historically low turnout. As always, our work is strictly nonpartisan. All are invited both in person and online to attend the REAB Project Kickoff event after the service next Sunday, September 18th. We'll provide an overview of planned activities for the fall, and both refreshments and an opportunity to write postcards for those here in person. More information and registration on the church calendar. Now I'll pass it off to my colleague, Reverend Louise Green, our Minister of Congregational Care.
Greetings, everyone. I am Reverend Louise Green, and my pronouns are she, her. If you're here for the very first time, you may think, oh my goodness, these people are wildly enthusiastic. That is because we have been singing How Long for 2.5 years, and I returned in August 2020, and this is my first time seeing this. So I'm literally crying with Dolores over here, so thank you. It's beautiful, beautiful to see you. As we gather back into a dynamic church year, more in person than in a long time, we are rebuilding the systems of congregational care. And so I ask you to consider a small role if you want to make phone calls to congregants, if you'd like to write cards, if you want to be matched with a particular situation to be of support, then just let me know. And if you have a joy or concern that you want in the newsletter that comes out on Friday or that you would like in a service like this, you can email. Our dedicated email is congcare, CONGCARE, @allsouls.ws. That's our system as we gather information in for the whole. So we have a few celebrations to begin today. All Souls is ever a place of wonderful music and arts. Today it is a joy to be with our assembled festival choir. So thank you to every singer, every musician, and our dedicated staff, Jen, Rochelle, and Leonard. And then we have another dedicated group operating as congregation on the lower level in religious education. Thank you to the Opportunities for All Ages through high school. Appreciation to the beautiful teachers, the child care providers, the RE committee, and staff Dolores and James. Woo-hoo. And we're just going to do it all today. Thank you for the ushers. Thank you for Story for All Ages. Thank you for our ASL interpreter, her first time here, I think. And if I left you out, I'm so sorry. I thank you too. This week brought a joyful gathering of many cousins, I hear, for Ed Novak and Amy Odegaard. Amy's son, Nolan, got married to April last night, and we send good wishes to the new couple and for the extended family celebration. They are actually here, like the morning after the wedding, with Amy's mom, Shirley, I believe. Is that right? Okay. Ms. Shirley is a longtime UU from Arizona. And now your names and situations into this space, a time where you can put something in the chat. If you're on Zoom, if you want to list something there, you may say it aloud into this space or just silently in your heart. Just a moment to gather our concerns and joys. Would you take some moments of breath and meditation with me? In times of repeated discombobulation, endless transitions, even outright chaos, we find anchor words and practices to call our hearts home. And one phrase which has deep resonance for me is a verse from the Christian New Testament, which was coming to me this week. For For the Holy One has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and self-mastery and love. For the Holy One has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and self-mastery and love. Spirit of life, let us not dwell in the spirit of fear. May we find the inner power of resilience, the power of community. And may this be honed in self-reflection and care for our tender hearts and the discipline of spiritual food received over time. Let us dwell in the powerful spirit of love, the love which transforms all things. Blessed be. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Hughes. I am the Executive Director in service of All Souls Church, and my pronouns are she, her. This morning's reading today is by Sean Parker Dennison, and the title is To Invoke Love. To invoke love is to ask for a hug from a thunderstorm, spill tea in the lap of the infinite trickster, to make the biggest, most embarrassing mistake of our life in front of everyone who matters. To invoke love is never to know if it will come softly with the nuzzle of a beloved dog, or pounce right on your chest with the strength of a lioness protecting her cub, her pride, her homeland. To invoke love is to take the risk of inviting chaos to visit the spaces you spent so much time making tidy, and watch as the breath of life scatters everything you have just folded and put away. To invoke love is to allow for the possibility that your words and actions might become so empowered you can no longer believe in apathy or self-righteous idea that nothing can change. To invoke love is to give up self-deprecation, false humility, pride to consider yourself worthy to be made whole, willing to encounter love that will never let each other of us go. To invoke love is to guard against assumptions, take care with our words, and practice forgiveness, not as ethereal idea, but right here in the messy mist of our imperfect lives. To invoke love is to approach each day and every person with wonder, anticipating love's arrival. Is this the moment? Is this love's grand entrance? Is this person the embodiment of love? Am I the one? To invoke love is to play the fool, the one more concerned with loving than with appearance or reputation, the one ready and willing to be vulnerable, abandoning anything that gets in love's way. To invoke love is to be ready to become love, here, now, in everything we do.
Are you ready to become love? Are we ready to sing a new song here in this sanctuary, here in the virtual space that is now part of our religious home as well? Are we ready to sing that new song? This service feels like a reclaiming of what we loved. The big music, the massed choirs, the processional down the center aisle, the children offering joy as they acted out the story for all ages. It was terrific. All Souls does big, meaningful worship. We do it so well. It's why we come, many of us, to be moved and to be present, to have our hearts opened and lifted up by the experience of worship in this place. But that is not the only way this church opens hearts. I remember the first time I preached from this pulpit, 21 years ago today. 9/11, 2001. I was the new Unitarian Universalist Association president on my very first visit to DC. That morning, I was on the Hill. When we were rushed out of the building and told to leave the area, we saw smoke rising from the Pentagon across the river. The collapse of the Twin Towers played over and over and over again all day long on the television. And I got a call from Rob Hardyes, Reverend Rob Hardyes, the brand new minister here at All Souls, asking me if I could join him in this sanctuary that evening, and if I could preach. There was no massed choir. The mood was somber, quiet, as the congregation, then much smaller than it is today, and folks from the neighborhood entered through the open doors in the back, open to all souls in a time of great need. And in the sermon, I asked, where was God today? Was the Spirit of life present in the cockpits of those planes? Presence with those who died as the buildings collapsed? Was it among the survivors as they fled, covered with dust? Yahweh, God, where were you today? I asked. What I said was that God was with the helpers, with the firefighters and police who ran into the buildings, with the medics and the nurses and the doctors who were ready to treat the too few who survived, present in the members of the Fourth Universalist Church in New York, handing out bottles of water to those who streamed north away from the fallen towers. God's presence, love, moved through the helpers, I preached. And then I asked those present to look around them, to look at those who were gathered. Look around you, I preached. Love is present here, helping us hold all of the fear and the anger and the uncertainty and still hold on to hope. Still also, persistently, stubbornly, and despite all of our doubts, helping us to remember that love can be real if we make it so, and that love might, just might, that love might in the end win. God was here that night, in this place of presence, just as the Spirit of life is present here this morning. COVID has been a real challenge in every part of our lives. It has certainly been a challenge for this congregation that relied on presence here in worship to make its identity real, to embody the hope at the heart of this faith. Absence, that lack of presence, has been a real loss. And I'm so glad to be reclaiming it here on this homecoming Sunday. But regathering is still tentative. You know this. Many of us not ready yet to sit shoulder to shoulder, despite the care we take. And some of us have gotten kind of fond of worshiping at home in our jammies, at least some of the time. I am not here to declare that COVID is over, that caution is no longer needed, that we can just go back to singing the old songs in the old way. We will be living with COVID and the changes it has accelerated from now on, I think. My message this morning is that the Spirit still moves in this space and in the virtual space we now embrace, that our belief in the power of love abides, and that the need for liberation in our world and in ourselves still calls us forth. The message of this morning is that we are still present. We are still showing up. We are still coming, still yearning for a path that can point us toward beloved community which remains the heart of our vision and our dream. Lives of wholeness in a world that supports human thriving, a world committed to dismantling all those structures that limit and block the power of love. Things have changed. There will be no return to exactly what we knew before. We do need to sing a new song to nurture our spirits in a changed world. Our good news, though, The heart of our message has not changed, but the expression, the way we embody that message may need to shift, as it has before. A story. In the late 1990s, Unitarian Universalism embraced anti-racism. Do you know this history, some of you? It was the first denomination to declare anti-racism central to its religious life. A full generation before the eighth principle, before our current expression of that commitment. It was called the Journey Toward Wholeness. And like every attempted leap into liberation, there was pushback. There was resistance from folks who considered themselves good liberal religious people and good Unitarian Universalists. The Journey Toward Wholeness used a training model that was developed by the Lutherans that required translations for Unitarian Universalists who were, many of them, allergic to the use of Christian language and concepts. It called for confession on the part of white folks that they were, by definition, not intention, but by definition racist because they benefited from the structures designed to support what we now call the culture of white supremacy. We understand this, right? But the model called for confession and repentance and conversion, and, well, the resistance was significant. I was elected UUA president while the resistance was growing most intense. And I knew that the faith that I loved, despite its bold attempt to transform itself, our faith was getting stuck. And I was having way too many stupid conversations. Stuck. We were getting stuck. And so we made some personnel changes at the UUA, very painful changes. And we hired a new staff person who brought a different approach. That approach asked folks, white and BIPOC folks, everyone, to enter not a conversation about guilt or complicity with racism, but to reflect on mattering, on when we had each felt that we truly mattered. What were the circumstances, it asked? What made possible for you, each of you, that feeling of truly mattering? And she asked us, the staff person, all of us, black and white and all the shades of beige in between, to remember those times when we had felt that we didn't matter. And she used those experiences of mattering and not mattering before talking about race or gender identity, which we were only beginning to talk about back then. She used those lived experiences of mattering and not mattering to open doors that had been shut in too many hearts. Mattering. Not Black Lives Matter, or Blue Lives Matter, for that matter. It was all lives matter, but not an all lives matter that erased some of our experience or that tried to homogenize it. It was the way the approach personalized and particularized our experience that made the analysis almost undeniable. And that analysis helped get this faith unstuck. And that staff person was Taquina Boston, a member of this congregation. She usually sits right over there. I don't know if she is here today. Now Taquina has her own stories about that time. And when I asked her if I could share the story of my experience of that time, she was quick to remind me that that model she brought had been developed by and with others and that it drew on previous intellectual work. She took little credit for it, but she deserves our thanks because her presence and the gifts she offered helped to reopen this denomination to the power of love. And those were not her last gifts, I should hasten to say. But let me now bring that forward, because that's a long time ago. That intervention did not miraculously bring the beloved community into being. That's not how all this works. The beloved community is not some city on a hill built in stone, unchanging, just waiting for us to walk up that hill. That's not how this works. The beloved community is always a work in process. There's always scaffolding around the stone walls of that city, so we can remove some of that stone that's holding us back and imagine new, strong, but more porous boundaries to hold our hopes. It's always a work in process. And our good news is that the hopeful but heady language we use of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, of each of us, of all souls, that lofty language lives in the commitment that each and every one of us matters, in how we are empowered particularly, in how we are harmed specifically, and in how we yearn collectively and accountably for our liberation. Our good news has grown deeper. It has not changed. It has become more grounded in real lived experience. Now, the challenges ahead are legion. But our current work, using the language of the eighth principle, is so fundamentally hopeful. And there are even deeper reasons for hopefulness than I think most of us have tapped into yet. As concern for COVID begins to recede and we re-emerge, tentatively to be sure, we emerge into a world in which divisiveness and the reverses of our successes invite us to question the power of love. And I know many of you are questioning it even today. We question that power. How could there be that power and things have gotten this bad, this fractured, this full of harm, with human kindness seeming so absent? But we are discovering that there is a power within us and among us that we have not yet fully tapped. As we emerge, we discover that our commitment to reproductive justice is not just a woman's issue, not anymore, because we've done some of the work at the intersection of identity and justice. So it's not just those who bear children who demand reproductive justice, and those of us who do not bear children show up supporting those who do, centering the voices and the leadership of those most harmed. We've learned a few things. And we discovered that our commitment to anti-racism is not just or even primarily a Black or an Indigenous or an Asian issue, because we have all done some of the work of looking into the truth of our lives so that there are white identified leaders ready to follow the leadership, the diverse leadership of BIPOC folks. We've learned some things. We've learned some things the hard way, but we've learned some things. And perhaps the most important thing we've learned is that we are only beginning to tap the power of love. Because as we get closer to the truth of our lives, we have more trust in that love that has never let us go. And we're coming to understand that it's true that to invoke that love is to allow for the possibility that our lives might become so empowered that we can no longer believe in apathy or the self-righteous idea that nothing can change. We're beginning to realize that to invoke that love is to ask for a hug from a thunderstorm, in the words of our reading, to ask for a hug from the power that fuels the universe. It is to partner with the most hopeful and helpful guide for our living. We're beginning to discover, just beginning, how much power we can have. Now, I want to be clear. Unleashing love's power will require faith. This business of taking your spiritual life seriously is not for the faint of heart. But the love and the joy have always been there, waiting for us to get close enough to them to tap their power. And we are getting closer. We do not need to wait for God's promise to be miraculously fulfilled by some power out there. We do not need to cry out to God in lamentation, Yahweh, because God is present here. Still, even now, the Spirit of life is here because we are part of that fulfillment, part of the process that can liberate us all and unleash love's power. We are part of that. It is in us. And so the question for us, as we regather and as we begin this new church here, the question for us is not whether love is real. The question for us is whether we will have enough faith and enough courage to sing the new songs that can help us all get free. We bring so many questions, I know. But we are also part of the answer. Because we belong to that power of love, and that power of love belongs to us. And there is a joy that cannot be taken from us if we stay true to our truth and stay true to one another. There is joy in our presence together, and there is power in our presence to one another. The power of love is waiting to be tapped, and it will not let us let each other go. Welcome home, All Souls. Amen.
Hey y'all, me again. It's a big day. Homecoming Sunday, the anniversary of 9/11. They just appointed a man to be queen. And I've been up here with you guys for a long time. My 2-year term as worship associate is running into its second decade. I'm like Uncle Frank, which is what I like to call the extra pounds around my middle. It's the self-invited guest who just won't leave. I may still be doing this when my children have grandchildren, but I can't be here every Sunday, so we need you. I'm sure half of you just clutched your pearls and thought, no way, not me, but yes, you, and I'm gonna tell you why. The worship associates gathered the other day, and we shared stories of why we serve. And everyone's story was different, but also the same. First, we all feel anxious as hell getting up here. Glossophobia, the fancy nerdy name for fear of public speaking, is the most common phobia ahead of death, spiders, or heights. One, let me assure you that the pulpit is only about 10 steps high, and I've never seen a spider. Two, I know I usually look fabulously composed, but underneath, there's this soupçon of social anxiety and that special frisson of excitement, never knowing if the stirred dust will send me into a paroxysm of coughing when I'm supposed to be speaking. And you guys all saw how I flubbed the opening today. So, what if I did? Up here, you're among friends. There's no gotcha mentality. What's the worst that can happen? I've celebrated singing Spirit of Life in Mongolia and when this Southern gal wore jeans into church for the first time, but I've also full-on sobbed up here as I have talked about struggles with infertility, miscarriage, and personal loss. It is after these services that I get more same girl emails than any other. We are most connected in our vulnerability. Second, each worship associate was inspired by another up here sharing their stories and by wanting to give back to keep the church strong. I was first drawn to being a worship associate because I liked telling stories, but for a long time I was still more of a taker than a giver to this church. I would show up, absorb, and leave. My commitment shifted after the 2016 election. The prior administration upended my world in many ways, and feeling lost and disconnected from my country, my church became critically important as my anchor. I need all souls to fight for the world I want my children to inherit and to help mold them into proper stewards of that world. For that, I must be an active sustainer of this community, which depends on each of us to build the house that no wolf can blow down, stone by stone. Third, we feel it is important to have non-ministerial voices share the pulpit. That's us. You're part of us. There are numerous ways to give to the church, and one is a tithe of time. Whether you can spare a chunk or a sliver, we gratefully accept. Perhaps you can serve 2 Sundays a year, perhaps a dozen. The time commitment's up to you. Finally, we all appreciated our mentors, and we're here to hold your hand too. So anyone who volunteers for this job is going to have this full support that they need to execute it to their satisfaction. You don't have to be a polished public speaker to be a worship associate. As Reverend Sinkford says, we are not here for perfection. We are here as an invitation to the beloved community and to create and invoke the power of love. You don't have to commit $1 million. All you have to do is care about this church and tell us why. I'm up here because this church is essential to both making the world right and making me feel right at home. It is home. I still can't chew gum in public, but I've worn denim at the altar. Make today the day that you challenge yourself to something you never thought possible and get on up here too. Keep our house strong by giving of tithe and time. Today's offering will now begin. If you're in the sanctuary, the ushers will be passing the plate for our offering. You can also text to All Souls by sending ASCU to 73256. And if you're on Zoom, click the link in the chat, which will direct you to an All Souls online giving. Thank you for your patience and generosity.
please rise for our closing hymn. The words will scroll on the screen behind us. You can also listen for Rochelle, who is going to give those cues as our song leader this morning.
belong to and a love that belongs to us. That is the love that will not let us let each other go. May we know that love in our lives as we move into this year. May that love call us to service, and may that service give us joy. Amen.
All Souls, I hope you feel like you went to church today. I'd love for you to stay up if that's true. Every Sunday, well, I'll make sure you can hear me. Every Sunday, we are grateful for our team at Joyful Signing, who helps to lead ASL interpretation for our Sunday morning worship. But for our benediction today, we consulted with Joy about how to give us another tool for how to communicate our benediction. And there is one word that we would like you all to join in the ASL interpretation for. The title of today's benediction is Today. So there is a moment when the choir will sing, today, 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 today. And we would love for you all to join us in that. Since we can't see your beautiful singing back at us, please join us as we say today.
I give her away today, today. No longer bound by what people say. I know that I will make mistakes. I fall, but I refuse to stay today. I've been waiting all my life to get to the door, and now it's time to help someone see they're alive for so much more. In a minute I'm about to break today. See the pain has purpose, so don't throw it away. There's a harvest if you only wait. Don't walk out now, I need you to stay today. Though you never felt winds blow like this before, but what you see is all you see. You will miss this so much more. Everybody is somebody. You gotta feel somebody. Ooh, we will live our life. We won't waste no more time. We're not looking back no Today, I think I feel the weather change. Think I felt my last drop of rain. I believe I'm gonna be okay today. See, today, I'm still here because of my faith. I believe it is the only way. I said it 'cause I'm not afraid today.
on this homecoming Sunday, go in peace and practice love. Amen.
Amen.